Everyone in the sport community is feeling the impact of COVID 19. Aside from anxious fans, there are huge numbers of athletes, many still not knowing when they will play again, but also having to be in tip top shape and ready to go. High performance specialist Dr. Matt Kritz is Senior Associate Athletic Director for Athletic Performance at UC San Diego. He's here to look at the implications for athletes preparing to get back in the game. Thanks so much, Dr. Kritz.
Thank you.
So our sports teams and athletes generally are surrounded by people to train with and be supported by. What have been some of the challenges, and are they different, say, for a team member versus an athlete that competes as an individual?
I think one of the main challenges is just, you alluded to, an athlete is used to a number of people that support them, right? It's the village that kind of raises them, if you will. And all of a sudden, void of that village, what are you left with? We take a unique approach at UCSD where we very much are trying to develop our athletes to be independent, to be resilient. But that's a process, right? That doesn't happen overnight. So, as much as we want them to be able to handle situations like this, even though you don't dream of these types of things happening, we talk a lot about it, just the ability that we can't exceed their commitment level. We can only match it. And passengers to national championships or All-American status, so they have to be as involved in the development process as we are. That said, they're used to having that support and that encouragement around them, and all of a sudden that yanked away has a pretty significant impact. And I don't believe there's a difference between team and individual athletes. I think whether you're an individual sport athlete, you have that support network around you, or a team athlete, particularly at the college level. Individual sport athletes are still considered to be a team within their respective disciplines. And so there's still that familial feeling, if you will, with their other teammates and their coaches, and then the support staff that works on their behalf.
Well, discipline is also key to a successful athlete, along with routine. Do you think that there may be issues with motivation? I mean, athletes are human too. Without that network, could that be a challenge?
Without question, it's absolutely a challenge. I mean, to develop an athlete, to get them where you want them to be so that they can represent your school, your country, your professional organization, regardless of what arena you're competing in. There's a lot that goes into it. So discipline is one part, but you have all these experts around to help mitigate risk and to help develop. And all of a sudden, when that's removed, all the resources and facilities that they're used to developing are also removed, right? And particularly in this situation. So they're now at home, and depending upon how elaborate those home setups are, and it's generally not as elaborate as they were used to, at least at UC San Diego. So it's not surprising, and by no means would anybody hold it against them if motivation drops a bit, because you're used to a level and an intensity that is pretty high, and because you can't duplicate it at the same level, it would be easy to go, okay, so then what's the point, right? So it's very much was one of the things that we mobilized early in this whole challenging time, was to create enough opportunity for the athlete to continue to train, to continue to work on their mental resiliency with our performance mind work, to teach them how to adapt to the nutritional demands when they're not training as much, and how to augment that for the current environment. So we just saw this as another challenge in their training regimen, if you will, right? We just tried to keep the metaphor as consistent as we possibly could, attenuating things where it needed to be and adjusting where it needed to be. But it was definitely a major challenge to get them to see how all this was going to still contribute to their momentum, of developing to be the best they can be.
So what are you hearing from those athletes about the challenges they're facing, and as well about the prospective return to the season?
Well, they're eager. They're definitely eager to get back. So much so that we've been pleased with how much they're doing on their own, voluntarily doing on their own, they're worried. Because it's such a big part of their identity, and a big part of just what keeps them going each and every day, and to have that, removed and to try to find something that will fulfill that void isn't going to, be easy to come by. So they're actively interested in the when and the how when we return to campus and we start to return to training. And we're just, trying to be ready for that, right? The goalposts keep shifting, it seems, daily, weekly. And so we just adjust to those and pivot. But we have a real steadfast commitment to the athlete development, and that extends beyond, the fields that they play on, the pools that they swim in, the courts that they play on. So we're actively, reaching out to our scholar athletes daily, weekly, to ensure that they're doing well. And so that way, when they do reintegrate, it's less of an effort, right, to get back in it, if you will.
I can imagine it would be a pretty complex process as well. I mean, what are the elements that need to work together to return safely?
Well, we at UC San Diego, we have an integrated approach to our athlete development. So there are, pretty much worldwide, there's 5 disciplines that are considered to be involved in developing an athlete, whether it's the Olympic level, college level, professional level. You have your strength and conditioning. We refer to those as your performance coaches. You have your sports medicine and your athletic trainers, your nutrition, your sports psychology, your performance mind, and then you have the analytics that should tie all that together, which is really quantifying the support that's being provided to see if it's actually working and providing a meaningful experience. So all of those entities at UCSD, we have a one program, one athlete approach. As much as we have 600 plus athletes, we try to be respective and teach them, coach them individually as best we can. So really, when we were presented with this challenge, we continued with that integrated approach, and we looked at, okay, how do we manage each one of these different supports, but collectively, not independently, and create support for them that was all somewhat synergistic in its approach, right? So the programs that they got, the physical conditioning programs that they got to do at home, were specific to what they had available, whether it was a small room or they had a large backyard or they had some home gym equipment. The nutrition programs that they got were specific to what their financial situation was, what they could afford, what their personal habits were. Their mind programs were also specific to their environments. There are lots of kids at home that they are now back to, lots of siblings and family members living in the home. And so how important was it for them to find some of their own time to go for, some mindfulness walks or mindfulness time just to stay grounded? Or are they all by themselves and dramatically missing that human contact that they were so used to? So we looked at each situation as individually as we could. We had the time to do it. That's one of the things when all of a sudden competitions, everything are taken away. We still quickly pivoted and said, well, we still got a lot of work to do here because we still care for these athletes and we still want them to work through this period of time and again, maintain the momentum that they were building prior to when the pandemic hit.
You alluded to the holistic and integrated approach, including a mental health perspective. I imagine after isolating for months away from your team members, it could spark a wide variety of emotions.
Yeah, we are seeing that. We track that within our athletes. We ask them to complete some voluntary wellness surveys on a daily basis just to see how they're tracking, because that kind of helps us guide support. We have a saying here, we like to pump the gas. We don't ever want to have to slam on the brake. And so we can't do that unless we have our finger on the pulse of how you're doing and what's going on. And so, yes, there is some significant mental health challenges because you're used to, as we've alluded to, you're used to being a part of a community. You're used to having pretty established social networks. You're used to just having incidental conversations. Right now, everything is more formalized. If you're going to go speak to somebody or have a meeting, it has to be more formal. There's no hallway chats or on the way to class that you're stopping and see somebody and then end up going to coffee with them, and that ends up being a pretty cool end to your day. That doesn't happen. So everything has to be formalized, and then with everything that's been going on, people are separated, and you only see people in this format, which we've had to get used to the benefit of that without actually being right next to them. So significant challenges there, but it's also given us an opportunity to mobilize a lot of our mental health strategies. The university has some great support in their psychological and counseling services that have remained open to the athletes during this time. Our Performance Mind support that's specific to athletics and our scholar athletes has been available to do things like what we call mind gyms, and we would do yoga sessions and meditation sessions that the athletes could voluntarily join and still have that kind of communal feel and just work through what are some strategies that best suit to keep them going. And if anything, just to talk with somebody about, and let them know it's very normal what you're experiencing. We're all experiencing it, and just trying to be as empathetic as we possibly can.
So in terms of a physical presence, do we know what the state of affairs will be come September at UC San Diego?
Well, we kind of know. we know that the Big West has announced that they're suspending fall competition in line with some of the other conferences. We understand why this is done. It's hard. There's not the same continuity of testing and quality assurance within each institution. We're very fortunate at UCSD to be at a world-renowned institution that's very innovative in their healthcare and their medical approach. And so we can assure that our athletes are well tested quickly and safe, but not everybody can do it within the same time frame. So it's pretty hard to make sure that this team A versus team B is are all asymptomatic healthy. So, the call to cancel those fall competitions makes sense. What we do know is that we will have, when school is back in, and although there will be some courses that will be synchronous and asynchronous courses, meaning in-person versus non-in-person versus you got to be there and sit in front, or you can take it whenever, that we're still going to try to provide a training opportunities for each athlete. We're going to use this opportunity to really dial into their athletic profiles, their physical readiness profiles. One of the biggest concerns that I have as the director of performance for the university and the 650 scholar athletes is just the detraining effect that's occurred over the last 6 months. As motivated as our athletes are to try to maintain, they haven't had the same level of training, the same intensity, volume of it. And so soft tissue has detrained. And the concern that I always had, and this is across professional sport as well as I talk to my colleagues who work in that or the Olympic ranks, is this urgency to get back quick and to put something out there for public consumption. It can come at the risk of the athlete's safety, right? This the soft tissue. Injuries occur when demand exceeds capacity, full stop. There's nothing more complicated about a soft tissue injury. So if the demands are greater, meaning the competition training demands are greater because we're asking them to do a lot in a short amount of time to try to get ready for that competition, it's likely that you're going to have a higher incident of soft tissue injuries. So we see this as a great time to assess each athlete as they come back, to really understand where are they, where is their physical readiness related to the demands of the sport that they compete in, relative to their own personal physical competencies and capacities. We'll come out of this period of time with some valuable information. I think that'll help us even for years in the future, where we'll be able to pinpoint readiness much quicker. When we have a normal season where they're, come off of a summer and then they got 2 weeks to get ready and everybody's kind of hustling around to try to get them ready. Well, now we're going to be able to go, well, this is exactly where you are and this is exactly where you need to be. So we're excited for that opportunity. We're trying to appreciate the challenges, but see the opportunities in this, and we'll be ready for it. So we'll train appropriately. We'll assess relentlessly. And at the end of it, those athletes that choose to come back, as it will be their choice, we feel that they're going to have a leg up on the rest of their competition within our conference.
Well, we will definitely be watching as colleges and universities continue to navigate this unknown territory. We thank you so much for taking time to share your insights with us today.
Thank you very much for the opportunity. All the best.